Mathew Owens. Thank you for joining us. I know we were chopping it up just a little bit now, but to pick up a little bit where we left off, I did some research and off what you sent me, and some online looking you up and everything. So I'm kind of familiar with what you're doing, what you're about, and I think it's great. And but for everybody listening that might not know who you are, hopefully you get a lot of friends to tune in. But why don't you give us the breakdown on kind of what you're doing, where you come from, who you are?
Yeah, for sure, man. I appreciate having me on. I'm looking forward to adding some value and having some good discussion here. So, I'm a CPA. I did the whole college thing, got a degree in economics and accounting, went to UC Santa Barbara, had my fun at the biggest party school in the United States almost, and actually became a CPA afterwards, did accounting and auditing and all that, and was just honestly bored out of my mind, just like I can't do taxes and audit for the rest of my life. Plus, I want to cuss out the IRS agents because I can't
Oh
talk to
yeah.
those people. They just steal our money, right? So at the end of the day, I quit my CPA firm job in 2006 to go into real estate full time. So perfect timing, right? Like I was a real estate
Yeah.
genius about a year and a half before I got my ass handed to me by the market crash.
Great time.
And yeah, exactly. And so I, thought I was dope. We're flipping houses all of a sudden and, killing it in 2006. And then the market crashed and I ended up losing everything and taking a massive punch in the face. And my ego was destroyed. My credit, I had a 790
Oh
credit
yeah.
score at the time that took a hit. And my whole ego was based on, oh, I got good credit. I'm a CPA. I don't miss payments and, learning lessons the hard way. Right.
Yeah,
And
man. You're not
thinking
alone.
I'm going to have plenty of free time working for myself, go to the gym every day and all this stuff, working 14-hour days later. I picked myself up after that and just kept grinding and pushing through. I took out 200 grand on my credit cards to pay my investors back that, when everything was crashing at the time. And, since then we've flipped over 1,000 houses now. We have over
Wow.
35 million lent out to flippers in different markets around the country. We do a lot of value add multifamilies, mobile home parks, and these types of strategies. And I've been able to raise over $150 million now for real estate and private businesses and these investment strategies. And
That's
I'm
awesome.
actually even shifting away from flipping right now because it's just a big grind, right? It's a lot of work
Sure.
doing that kind of work and finding ways of getting more of that work-life balance and spending more time with my kids. I got a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old, and my I say my daughter beats me up emotionally, my son beats me up physically. So the fun of being a parent now, right?
Oh
So,
yeah.
so that's the story, man. And I really just focus on trying to add value as much as I can to other people and show people different ways of creating financial freedom in their life, and working on these different strategies on how to mitigate risk and invest with the right people. So,
Yeah.
it's been a fun journey, I'd say. A lot of punches in the face along the way. That wasn't the only one that I took in 2008. A lot of people
No.
stealing from you, and after doing 1,000 flips, 1,000 ways to lose money on a house,
Yeah.
so, those trials and
Yeah.
tribulations you go through, right? So, but it's been a fun journey.
That's awesome. So 2006, what got you started in wanting to do that? Like you said that, you couldn't do this forever, but why did you say, oh, this is the route I'm going to take? Because obviously there's a million and one things that people can do
Right.
other than accounting. What made that decision for you?
It really came down to focusing on, hey, what do I want to do, right? What am I driven towards? And I didn't know what to do. I was like, should I start a bar? Like, should I start a restaurant?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I just knew that I couldn't do the monotonous stuff of taxes and audit day in and day out. I remember wanting to cry on the way to work, just being like, oh, I can't do this. It's just
For
soul
sure.
sucking stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And my stepbrother ended up calling me up, and he was an engineer and was bored too. And he said, "Hey, you got to come to these classes. I got to hit up about these classes about real estate, and come check them out." And I remember saying, "Yeah, yeah, I'll go." And I was gonna totally blow him off. And then like the last day right before, he was like, "No, you got to come." And I ended up going, and there was courses on how to invest in real estate, how to flip houses, how to be an entrepreneur and all this stuff. It was like a
Hmm.
2-year course type of deal. And I immediately was drawn towards it. Not just that, but the energy in the room from other entrepreneurs in the room that I felt like were on board to help you. Yeah, a lot of them were salesy and stuff like that in certain ways, but a lot of them were there just to add value. And you could tell they were better at sales, I'll say, because they're just adding value in different ways, right?
Sure.
And and I really started becoming drawn towards it, and started taking the classes, and I got my first deal under contract. And I was reading Rich Dad Poor Dad at the time on
Okay.
the
Great
right
book.
way to make income, of course. And I'm like, trading time for money is not it, right? And
Yeah.
now trading time to build assets, that's a better story, right? And a better way to do that. And I wanted to become a specialist by buying rentals and buying and doing fixing and flipping and learning that whole method. And so I got my first deal under contract. We were going to make like 30 grand on the flip. And it was out in Memphis, Tennessee. And we ended up making 20 grand on it. But at the end of the day, still made a profit. And they call that real estate crack. Once you get
Oh
that
yeah.
first, piece of it, you're like, I got to go for it and
Oh yeah.
push. And that's really what it came down to is I was immediately drawn towards it. And then my learning curve was like this. It was all of a sudden something new to me, something exciting, something where I could pave my own way instead
Yeah.
of let me go to networking events with a CPA firm and get a 2% commission or something like that on the money. You're like, I don't care, So,
Right.
but
Yeah.
but that's where it came down to is creating that freedom and in your life and realizing that hey, if you are trading time for money long term forever without building assets that are, paying for itself and creating cash flow for you, then you really are going to be a slave the rest of your life, right? To that job and taxes, and it's the worst way to pay taxes is through W-2 employment and stuff like
Yeah.
that as well. And they take the biggest chunk out of you when you do that, right?
For
So,
sure.
that's what started driving me in the first place is that freedom and saying, how do I get there to that point,
Yeah.
So really cool things. So
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of people can relate to that same thing, but which is interesting now because they base all this, a big thing you see in like politics and the presidential race is like look at how many jobs we created and all this kind of stuff. And but it's weird because more and more you see that I think it's becoming more prevalent that people want that. They don't want to go work for somebody else. They want to create their own thing because again, people are becoming ever since, especially since COVID, they're more like I feel like there's a more of an awakening to I want to spend my time living my life. I don't want to be tied down to
right
this
to a
thing. So
job.
I think it's becoming right, like more prevalent that people are doing that. They're finding something they love. And with technology and social media and everything else, you can really do what you want to do. And I think more people are figuring that out. So it's
Right.
going to be interesting to see how long that lasts of like, how do you create jobs for people that are creating jobs for themselves?
And
Right.
and I and I think it's like it's almost a necessity now with AI coming in. There's going to be
Right.
automation coming in. People are going to lose jobs because of this, and so they're going to be forced to go out there and find new ways of making income. And just little things like I don't care if it's selling crap on eBay or selling
Right.
stuff on Amazon or whatever it is. Find a way to survive yourself through your own efforts as best you can. And, I even teach my 9-year-old son. He came to me the other day and he's like, Dad, can we talk about how to run a business? And I'm like, yes, we can, son. Absolutely.
That's
And
awesome.
so, and now I'm starting to have him compile some of his toys that he wants to get rid of. And I'm like, we're going to sell these things so that way you
I
can
love
actually
it.
go buy the things you want by, you selling over here and teaching him how to sell stuff online at 9 years old. Right. So
That's
it's like,
awesome.
how do you become self-sufficient? And it's not just that though, too. I think it's even more important when we see the changes in, I'll say, governments and the changes in control. How do you become self-sufficient, right? How do you gr-
Right.
grow your own food? How do you, learn to live on your own outside of the system in itself? Because you can be a lot happier than dealing with, being involved in the system. And look what happened to egg prices. I still yell at my wife for not letting me have chickens in the house or at the house for the eggs. But, so, but, it's that type of mentality of
Yeah.
being able to be free again. And I think, the whole COVID thing and the whole thing woke a lot of people up to seeing, wow, I don't want to be part of this system. I want to be able to be self-sustaining and self-sufficient on my own, right? So,
Yeah. Well, and it seems like you found a good blueprint for that. But, I don't think what people realize too is they see the finished product so much. And that was a big deal for me starting the show is I want people to know that like because entrepreneurship, doing this on your own, it can be very lonely. It can feel like you're isolated. It can feel like the whole world's against you. And but people don't realize they see that finished product online. They see the one good picture or the one good video of look what I did. And they think that that's just that person's life. And they just woke
yeah,
up and they did it. Right. And they need to realize that it takes time, it takes a lot of effort, but once you get there, the fulfillment is just so much greater, like you
Mhm.
said, than just this. I'm clocking in 9 to 5 and I'm doing somebody's taxes and I know what I'm going to make. And it's just ho hum, right?
Right.
Like, so for example, like, okay, you flipped your first house. How long did it take you to make that first deal? Did this something happen fast? Like how long did that take? What was the process?
So we were first going out there and we started analyzing different markets of the country, mostly for cash flow and saying, hey, where can I get the most bang for my buck and for cash flow? And I live in
Mhm.
Southern California. That is not the area to
No.
find cash flow, right? So
Right.
nothing pencils out here unless you're going to add like 10 units to it or something like that, and do
Yeah.
some major value add. And when I started analyzing different markets, we started focusing on like the some of the markets in Tennessee and Indianapolis and Atlanta, Georgia areas and things that cash flowed a lot better than here in California. And then we started scouring certain zip codes and things like that for
Hmm.
good deals and started trying to find dilapidated houses, whether that was on the MLS or off the MLS. And we started developing relationships with all these different people on the ground there, realtors, lenders, title companies, inspectors, contractors, management companies, and finding deal flow that way where they would bring it to us and we would analyze it. And luckily we were analyzing it pretty well from some mentorship and some
Sure.
classes we took, because there's an easy way to totally screw that up really
Oh yeah,
well. And I've done
definitely.
it in the past, and you learn your lessons on rehab overages and contractors stealing from you and all the trials and tribulations that go into that. But it took a lot at first, but then we were able to find a property relatively quickly, that first deal. And then once we found it, we felt like we started to be able to move forward at a faster pace. And we started getting, a couple a month under contract, right?
Okay.
Where we're like, wow, this is working. As long as we can buy things at the right price for that renovation, then awesome. Like, let's keep pushing. At one point, we were doing 10 a month, which is a crazy amount
That's
of
yeah,
property, but we were having to spend 150, $200,000 a year on marketing to do that though as well, on
sure.
pay-by-click marketing, direct mail marketing, relationship marketing, getting out to the markets and meeting people consistently. So it took a lot to get started, but it was also probably the best thing that ever happened to me doing it at the time I did, because we're able to take that hit right away and lose money on our own dime right away and kind of push through that, which pushing
Hmm.
through that showed me when you stand back up as an entrepreneur, like you said, you don't show all those things online, all your hits and punches in the face you took,
Right.
but your true success is going to be determined based on how many times you can stand the heck back up after getting punched in the face and knocked down, right? And so
100%.
you got to keep pushing and grinding, and it's that grit that's going to get you there. And you don't learn that grit unless you've taken the hits and unless you've, gone through those ups and downs and that kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that there's so many instances that gave me that aha moment. I remember we were going to lose about 50,000 bucks on a apartment building that we totally underestimated the rehab for. Thought we were going to be profitable, a good chunk of money, and we underestimated the rehab by like a couple $100,000. Like, it was
Oh,
a
wow.
a big mess up because we didn't realize how bad it was. Like, plumbing's falling apart in the plumber's hands and stuff like that
Wow.
under the property and stuff. And we had to redo everything, all the subfloors, every mold, all kinds of crazy stuff that we didn't realize. And I remember going to my wife and telling her, oh my God, I lost a salary today. That's $50,000. That back then that was a salary. Now it's like 100 you got to pay or whatever. But
Right.
so but and I was like, put your hand on my chest. I'm like, this is super stressful for me. How do I deal with this? I just lost 50 grand today. And I remember waking up the next morning and saying, okay, I'm just not thinking big enough. How do I get a deal under contract right now to make all this money back like immediately? And I had just been putting in the work to find 1031 exchange buyers that needed
Okay.
replacement property. And we were already grinding, trying to find deal flow, and ended up getting another multifamily under contract and wholesaling it 2 weeks later to a 1031 exchange investor and making $70,000 and making all that money back within like a 2 week to 3 week period of time of
Yeah.
acquisition and getting it under contract and reselling. And there was like a switch in my head at that moment where you're like, okay, focus on the opportunity right in front of you? How do you solve the problem right now? What action items can you take when a problem comes up? And that rewires your brain from, oh my God, put your hand on my chest, I can't breathe, to when you take a hit in the future, focus. Where's the opportunity? What action things can I take right now to solve this problem? And it's not always that easy. Sometimes
Right.
it takes longer, but that's the focus you have to push through those adversity things that will absolutely come up no matter what, right? So,
Right. That's yeah, it's definitely scary when you take those kind of hits initially. But like you said, you gotta, unfortunately, I feel like most times that if those things have to happen for you to be successful, which is another thing that really gets overlooked a lot of times. When it is like you said, you how many times do you get hit in the face and stand back up? But when you get hit in the face, like right, they always say everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face,
yeah,
right?
Tyson, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like, well, what, there, that's where I feel like a lot of people fold, and
Mhm.
they don't have that moment until, like, you have to hit, almost, I feel like you have to, because I happened to me more than once. You got to hit like basically the rock bottom, and either sink or swim at that point, right? Either I'm
Right,
going to give up and I have to accept that I'm going to be miserable and do something, or I'm going to figure this out, right? You got to be
right.
problem solving is just an immense piece of being successful.
And I think you have to go through that. You have to go through these
100%.
things in order to actually know what you're made of in the first place to push forward. I remember a couple years ago, we had a contractor steal 500 grand from us on multiple properties.
Jeez.
We had like about $5
How
million
did that
dollars worth of.
happen?
So he did two jobs perfectly, no punch list, which is like so rare from a contractor. I
Yeah.
was like, we've sent the inspector out and they had nothing on their inspection report. I was like, this is insane. Like you don't see that, you know? And I was like, oh my God, we found this awesome contractor who came referred from other people. So we gave him like 8 jobs and they were all big jobs and stuff like that. And he was submitting everything perfect, right? But by perfect, fake pictures, fake permits, fake sign offs from the city, fake
Whoa.
invoices. And we caught him right after we did the second draw. One of my guys that was reviewing all the stuff said, how this company, do they do mini splits on AC mini splits? And so he called the company. He's like, that's a totally different part. This is the doctored invoice. And we're like, oh no, we just gave him like the second draw on
Whoa.
all these projects, because he submitted the first draws and all that stuff. Everything was perfect. And we're like, oh no, did this really just happen? So he set us up and we ended up suing him and winning, but then now he's in jail
Yeah.
for something else. And we're like, great, we're never going to get paid back. So, so that happened. We
Jeez.
had about $5 million worth of foreclosures we had to deal with. I had to fire a chief operating officer for stealing from us and stuff like that too, for another company that we run. And all these things, I'm looking back at this going, wow, if I didn't take those hits in the past, there is no way emotionally I would have been able to deal with all this crap at the same time happening and still be able to push through, right? And
Yeah.
it's like it drives your character and helps you build that grit. Granted, I was waking up early in the morning meditating, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Oh
Uh,
yeah, absolutely.
do the Wim Hof breathing and stuff like that to get that going, and control my stress response.
Hmm.
And then meditating before I went in the house so I could try to live in the moment with the kids instead of stressing out and worrying about this stuff. But you
Hmm.
realize that, through those things, they're setting you up and putting you in the position emotionally and mentally for being able to handle bigger things and bigger challenges that may come. So really
Absolutely.
interesting.
It's interesting you bring that up. I'm a huge believer in meditation, and actually had profound life changing experiences through meditation myself. Been doing it for a long time.
Awesome.
How long have you been doing that? When did you start? What brought you to that?
So I had a one of my investors mentioned it to me one time because I'm the type of guy that I'm like my mind is like go go go
Yep.
focus, right? And you can't do that forever. You need to be able to live in the moment with your kids. And I don't want to
Yeah.
be playing basketball outside with my son and thinking about work, going hurry up and shoot so I can go work. You're like that's horrible, like don't do that.
No,
Be
yeah.
there. And it really came down to my kids and wanting to do that and live in the moment more with them, and that pain saying, no, I'm not going to miss this, anymore.
Hmm.
And I started following Wim Hof, and started actually doing some of his breathing exercises where, in
Incredible,
the morning
incredible.
time, every morning, it's like 30 deep breaths in, and then hold it, and then hold all your air out for like a minute, and then do it again, do it multiple times in a row. And it really massively reduces your stress and puts you in the right frame of mind. And doing some box breathing where you're doing 4 seconds in, hold for 4 seconds, 4 seconds out, hold for 4 seconds. You're regulating your entire system by doing that. And through those things, I've been able to like, completely, I'll say, biohack my system to
Yeah.
where I'm able to, like, even if I wake up on a Monday morning stress, which is usually when you have stress, most people, the most heart attacks happen on a Monday morning, and
Right. All the
and
fires
you
going.
realize that how the massive benefits of doing that. Now I get to teach my kids. My son is meditating with me and stuff like
That's
that,
great.
and teaching him how to do that. Whenever they have an emotional reaction, I'm like, stop and breathe. Like, you can control this. You have the control and the power, right? And
Yeah.
it's amazing. And Wim Hof also, he's been able to heal himself through meditation and things
Yeah.
like that, which has been pretty amazing. They've given him, different diseases, and he's been able to literally show through science that he's been able to get rid of that stuff. And it makes you realize, wow, this is super powerful and important to do. So,
Yeah. That's awesome, man. I mean, that's something that I feel like it's again another thing that's becoming prevalent with a lot more people, but with
right.
exposure through the internet and this kind of thing. And but it's so still like you get so many, it's hard. It's great to be able to talk. I talk about it, you don't when you're doing it, you don't really care. But beforehand, people always have like there's always still this a little bit of a stigma of it's weird or
Yeah, yeah,
I'm not religious or whatever it is. And you're like, it really has nothing to do with that. It's and all if you do look, and it's funny when you get into it, you start looking at religions and you're like, wow, they're all really saying the same thing that this accomplishes. And it makes you realize, but well, everybody they were all onto something. They articulate it different ways, but it's all really saying the same thing, which is what you said, like just be here in the moment, right? Be here now. I
right.
don't that's the guy that Ram Dass changed my life when I
Nice.
discovered him. And I'm sure you've heard of him,
Yep.
but it's yeah, that whole being here now just
And I
completely changed my life.
I think that stigma, comes, people think, hey, what are you talking about meditating? Oh, shut up. Like, I
Yeah,
don't want to hear this, kind of thing.
I'm not going to sit
You're a
cross-legged. Like,
natural medicine kook or something. You know what I mean? And and
yeah,
and I think that comes down from, the marketing campaigns of, traditional Western medicine. And if you understand that, hey, Rockefeller was one of the ones that was funding the school districts or the schools on
yep,
education about Western medicine, and actually funded campaigns to call naturopathic doctors and things like that, like kooks, and they're the crazy ones, when that's been the medicine for thousands of years,
yeah,
and you
absolutely.
start to realize that this has been ingrained in us. In my eyes, it's part of the matrix, I'll call it, in the conspiracy
No,
theory mindset of myself, right? And you
it
realize, hey,
is,
this is
man.
all just conditioning and marketing campaigns, and that's why we believed that, hey, Western medicine was always the way to go. Yes, it's got its benefits. If I need to go get a surgery or something, I'm going to the doctor, but if I want to heal myself, I'm going to try to do it through, what am I deficient in? What am I focused on? And how do
Hmm.
I heal myself naturally as best I can? Do some
Yeah,
ice baths, do some saunas and things like that to get rid of this stuff. So
yeah. That's obviously for I think acute Western medicine for acute things, like you said, like my back needs surgery because it's broken. Like,
right.
or
Yeah.
yeah, I need to have a surgery. That for I think it's absolutely amazing and it's a miracle. But everything else preventatively, there's just so like what you put in your body, the way you treat your mind.
Right.
It's unbelievable. I started meditating just because I was when I get angry, I had a temper when I played sports. It was set like I played tennis for a long time, professional tennis, and I did pretty well for myself, but I look back and I'm like, wow, if I didn't have a temper, I could have done so much more. And it got to a point where it was like, okay, I just want to be able to, like you said with your son, like, hey, you can breathe and you can control this. And that's
Right.
kind of where it started, was just like, okay, I'm going to sit down. And when I feel anger, I'm just going to go outside for a minute and I'm just going to breathe and I'm going to
Right.
follow my breath. And I never really looked into it. I was just like, okay, I'm just going to sit and breathe. And it worked. And then you start doing it. Okay, after a workout, when I stretch, I'm going to meditate for 5 minutes and then doing that. And then did that for a while. And it was just like some of the things that started happening. It was just like, wow, for whatever reason, you tap in. Like, I'm sure you've had the same thing happen if you're doing Wim Hof stuff. You just like, you're like, oh my God. Like it's just like you have
It's
these things that
insane difference.
happen. Yeah. And you're just like, this is unbelievable that there's so much more to what we're doing here than just ones and zeros.
And relating that back even to the business side of things,
Yep.
you realize so many of your decisions are emotionally based a lot of times. And if you can control your emotions, if you got to make a hard decision or have a hard conversation with somebody, or, going through a stressful event or something like that, you could very easily make the wrong decision or avoid that altogether, and not make that decision, which is even more painful situation for
Mm-hmm.
yourself to avoid those problems, right? Because you don't have that control over your own emotions. And the more you can control it, and you can't do it all the time, of course, everybody falters sometimes, and you got to cut yourself a break. Everybody thinks, I got to be perfect at this. And you're like, that's not
Right.
possible. Like just realize that and
Yeah.
take a step back and say, I made a mistake here. Let me dial this back in and do better as best I can. So, and
Exactly.
if you can find ways of dealing with those emotions and saying, no, I got to face those problems head on. Let me take a step back and breathe so I can deal with my stress response and then focus on the problem. Then you are able to get through business and you can make a hell of a lot more money as well and be
Yeah.
happier, right? So I
Happier.
remember my daughter sitting there, crying and crying and just like, so worked up that she can't calm herself down. And I'm telling her, you have the control, baby. You can do this and breathe through your nose and out through your mouth. Let's go slow. And she's like, I don't have the control. I'm like, yes, you do have the control,
Yeah.
So, but it's just slowly doing that. And then the next day, her getting up and telling my wife, Daddy really helped me. He helped me calm down. It was just like, oh, it just like feels great to,
That's
be able
awesome.
to teach your kids that same thing, which I would have never been able to do if I wasn't doing it myself and learning these things myself. So,
No, that I think that's awesome. And I think it's really valuable that to have someone that can like for to be able to teach your kids that at a young age. Like, I didn't have that
yeah.
realization until 25. And it's like, man, if I knew this when I was 10, like it really is amazing. But I'm a huge believer in everything is going to happen exactly how it's going to happen, regardless of what your ego thinks should happen or the way it should be.
Mm,
But I'm going to put that forth, like you said, I'm going to put forth my best effort to fix the problem or to do what I want to do. And I'm going to take the action to make it happen. But there's so much power in accepting that it's going to what's going to and it's the stress level lowers ridiculously too when you go, I'm going to do the best that I can to make this happen, but
mhm.
the chips are going to fall where they fall regardless, and I accept the end result regardless, and I'm just going to give my best effort towards it.
Right.
And that kind of leads me into so you were doing this. Was this something you were doing prior to '08, or is this something that happened after '08? Kind of when you said obviously everybody went through a lot in real estate at that point.
This was way after '08. So this was probably in 2014 and 15
Okay.
when I first started doing, meditation and stuff like that and learning about it, going through that. I was probably looking back, I was a lot less aware or self-aware of my own emotions at that time.
Sure.
When everything's crashing, my brother and I were business partners and we're out in the front yard going, let's fight. We're in a real fight right now. Like we're both freaking out. We both stress out the same way and know how to push each other's buttons. And, you learn through some of those ups and downs where you're just like, no, I shouldn't have reacted that way. And
Yeah.
I took some Kabbalah classes, which actually
Okay.
started helping me to look at myself first, and that really helped a lot. And I can't always do it, of course, and I'm stubborn, or at least my wife will tell you I'm stubborn. So
Yeah.
and talk a lot of trash to her all the time as best I can. So, but
Have to.
you gotta have it fun, right? So, but it comes down to that that, learning of this stuff, and, it takes time, right? You have to
Yeah.
be grown up enough. And, my parents, they were boomers, and my mom had three brothers, had no emotion there, right? My dad was a ranger and sniper in Vietnam and black
Oh,
belt in
wow.
Hapkido. And, there's no emotions in that relationship. It's
No,
just,
suck it
he's a
up.
hard dude, you know what I mean? And you got to learn these types of things and be okay with it, right? So, but you start to see how people can mentally struggle if they are going through these things and don't have these tools to be able to get through, right? So even
Yeah.
though it seems kind of cliche sometimes, I'll go meditate. You're like, yeah, actually, it does help. So,
Yeah. All the time.
but
Yeah, that's
yeah,
interesting. So, do you think you said your dad obviously doing that is a tough son of a bitch? The did that so before meditation. So, do you attribute? I mean, he was probably pretty tough and taught you how to be tough, and and learning from that, did that help get you through before that? Like, oh, hey, I got to suck it up, and that did it make you tougher?
yeah. So I think, his mentality of, hey, get up, brush yourself off,
Mm-hmm.
handle your stuff, you'll be fine, not
Awesome.
babying me on little things. I think I was in the hospital like 21 times before 18 from playing sports and all this stuff. So he's just like, whatever, and that made me strong. But he passed away when I was 26 and he was
Sorry to hear that.
56 of skin cancer. And that, I think, made me stronger than anything else, because I became the more of the head of the household type thing. And I told him when he was passing away, I had a 1-year-old little sister at the time, and my little brother was 3 years younger than me. And, I'm like, hey, Dad, I'll take care of him. You raised me. I'll get this handled. And, and probably screwed me up pretty good too, having to take care of everybody in my life. But,
No,
that is what gave me that grit, I think, that pushing forward of that strength to move forward through, these trials and tribulations that you go through in business as a whole.
yeah.
So, but it can be hugely beneficial, because after you get through these things, the wealth that it can create afterwards. I mean, $35 million lent out to flippers, raising 150 million, getting through 1,000 flips. Like, that stuff creates massive wealth, not just for us, but for our investors and things like that. And you realize the benefits of going through so much pain for such a long period of time to be able to get there. And I'm definitely not done on the pain. There's going to be more.
Oh yeah.
Things are going to throw themselves at you. That's life. But
Yeah.
you become more equipped when you go through those things. So,
More money, more problems.
yeah, yeah, there you go.
So, '08, things fell apart. You're rolling. How, what was walk me through the process of getting back? Did you stick with the same model? Did you say we have to adapt to something new? Was it still, the same company? What's walk me through how you got back and now
Yeah,
how
so
you're
we
rocking?
we we got an office at the World Trade Center in Long Beach, California, like the 23rd floor for like 5 grand a month, which now is probably 15 grand a month
Yeah.
in rents. But looking back, we were doing everything wrong, right? Like I thought I was a dope business owner because my bookkeeping was done because I'm a CPA, and I'm like, we know where we're at financially, even if it's a lot of overhead, and we're still flipping houses and selling a lot of houses doing that, right? When we thought we
Mm-hmm.
were dope, and my ego was like, we're awesome. Like, and it was the dumbest thing in the world, because as a business owner, you got to realize that you don't know crap. Everyone's just trying, and like,
Yeah.
you got to be humble in that way, and to be successful long term, right? You can't
Yeah.
have that ego about you that is going to block you from your mistakes. And we ended up, my stepbrothers went and got jobs after this. My brother and I, we hunkered down, went on unemployment for a little while, and then just decided to continued to doing what we're doing, but in a little bit different of a fashion. We weren't using debt at all anymore. There
Mm-hmm.
really wasn't any debt available. We thought
Right.
that there
Yeah.
was going to be debt, and there was a major liquidity crisis, and nobody was lending for like 6 or 8 months to get good financing out there for projects. And there was no appraisals, no comps, because things were not selling. All the only thing was
Right.
selling was cash deals. And so everything had dropped by like 20% across the board in the US. And then, it bounced back quite a bit after the financing started to come back. But, in a lot of these markets, they took a major hit. And so we started doing joint ventures with investors because
Okay.
I mentioned I took out 200 grand on my credit cards and paid my investors back, and they saw that I did that. And so by doing that, they started reinvesting with me again after the market tanked. And we started doing joint venture flips where I would add a $5,000 acquisition fee and rehab management fee to every
Hmm.
project. And so then we started doing five of those a month. And I'm like, great, we're making 25 grand a month coming in here for our acquisition and marketing and rehab management fees. And we're able to take these things down. And it was easy to find deals then at that time, of course, because there was a
Yeah.
plethora of, foreclosures and all this stuff. And then they started, funding at 100% cash on our deals. And we would fix and flip those projects or fix and hold those projects and do a lot of joint venture holds and things like that with those people. And then they started snowballing into more and more relationships, more and more referrals because they saw that
Yeah.
we took the hit for them. And in my mind at the time, I was like, I can't let them lose hours of their life. They just worked for that money. That's hours of their life. And I just emotionally was like, no, I'll find a way to make it back. I can't let them, take that hit. And so that it really turned into something amazing because they were able to start snowballing into so many more new relationships because of what we did there at that time. And I was just thinking in my head, like, yeah, don't let them lose money. I wasn't realizing that what the benefits were going to be long term of doing that. So that's
Yeah.
kind of how we pushed through and got started after that, scenario, that hit that we took.
Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, it really speaks volumes, to put other people first and doing the right thing as opposed to putting yourself first and just trying to self-preserve. And definitely you get the benefits of that. So it's just, I mean, good on you. I mean, because I'm sure I know, I don't, I'm not sure, I know that most people at that point just ducked out, like you said. I'm out of this. It's over.
Right.
The dream is dead. But for the ones like yourself that just said, "To hell with it. I'm going to push through and I'm going to figure this out." Again, problem solving. It really was a blessing in disguise, right? I mean, and it now think it's better. It turned out even better.
You realize that your darkest days come right before something amazing occurs, right?
Yep.
And you realize that that pain, when it gets to the most, that's what's going to push you into doing something that's, to a whole nother level, right? And you know that more and more after you've gone through hit after hit, or
Uh huh.
little things happening. Now, take a $5,000 hit on a property or a rehab or whatever the hell it is, and it's like brush it off the shoulder, whatever, just handle it and get it taken care of.
Yeah.
And the bigger hits, if those things happen, then they happen, and you take a little longer to brush off your shoulder. But at the end of the day, you're able to push through and find solutions to these things, and that's what's going to make you successful long term. So it's exciting to do this, and years later, doing that, and I still help a lot of people on the tax side. I don't do taxes, but I help them,
Sure.
avoid those taxes and not pay the government or let the government steal their money, as much as possible.
Right.
So
Hopefully that's hopefully gonna start getting limited here. It seems like that's the plan a little bit. I've got my fingers crossed.
if
Uh,
he abolishes the IRS, I will be
oh,
very, very happy. But
oh God, I
we'll
love
see
the
if
external revenue service. I love that.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's the best
yeah.
thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, get it out of the United States. Just take away the IRS, and I'll be like the happiest person on the planet. But I think it's a pipe dream. But I'm just,
Sure.
you could hope, right? So
Yeah.
hope and dream for that.
Yeah, this Doge thing, maybe it works out, right? And
Yeah,
because there's obviously just like
so much waste.
my wife works for the VA, and so she's in government kind in a capacity. She's a dietitian,
Okay.
and so I know way too much about food. It kind of sucks. At this point, I'm like, God, I keep sitting there eating steak and sweet potato, and I'm like, what's the problem with this meal? There's something wrong.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, nowadays it's like everything's poison out there. You got to watch out what
yeah,
you're eating. And I'm getting snacks for my son's basketball from some of the other parents, and I'm like, well, can't drink the Gatorade. It has red dye in it. You can't eat these cheese puffs. Like this is trash.
yeah,
You're like, I'm not gonna let them eat just a bunch of junk. That's just horrible for them. And now we got to worry about what's in our meat and
yeah,
what's in
man.
our food. And you realize the importance of farming. And I got a big garden at my house and
There you
everything. I'm
go.
like, my dream is to eat 75% of my food from my own garden
There
and
you
all
go.
that
That's
stuff. So,
awesome.
but now I got to go get those chickens my wife won't let me have.
Yeah, dude. Some of those eggs, my sister older sister lives up in the Panhandle, and they've got a little farm thing, and they did the chickens and all that, and the eggs are just so much better. It's so
Oh,
delicious.
yeah. That's awesome.
It's wild, and but the my wife's not really on board with the chickens yet. I'll make it happen. It'll be one of those things where it just kind of happens, and she's like
You ask for
pissed
forgiveness
at me for a
afterwards.
while. Yeah, exactly. I'd rather ask for forgiveness, which is like most of the time with things I want to
Yeah.
do.
That's normal, the husband and wife dynamic. Just
Yeah,
like do it
within
and
reason, right? But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it seems like you've placed a lot of value, which I think people get complacent with, and the more I talk to them on learning, and not just learning through experience, but also taking the time to research and like take courses or listen to people that have already done it and been there. I think like, there's so much value in that. It feels like that's from what you've told me. You know a lot of mentioning of constantly learning.
Yeah.
And would you say that that is one of the biggest keys to growing, especially continuing to grow for you?
Absolutely. And it's the type of learning too, right? So understanding that, hey, it's not always college, that usually doesn't find you ways of making money in college, right?
Definitely
It's
not.
learning the strategies. Like I watch a guy named George Gammon on YouTube all the
Okay.
time and watch economics. And I got to go tell him at a mastermind, a group that he was at, that my wife hates him because I make her watch economics videos all the time, and it's learning through the right people, but also I think going to different masterminds and things like that. I'm part of this Raise Masters Capital Collective
Oh, cool.
mastermind that I go to that really teaches you all these strategies on how to raise capital, and there's tons of relationships and knowledge bases in the room on the right marketing strategies, the right business strategies, the right way to set up your business for success. And it's and you're around those people that then also their energy level permeates off of you, because as you mentioned before, it can be lonely as an entrepreneur, right? A lot of people don't understand the pain that you go through as an entrepreneur, and going out and meeting and being around like-minded people like that brings your energy level to a whole nother level, which then makes literally it's self-fulfilling prophecy when you're in those environments and able to everybody's there to try to help each other. Yeah, they want to make money and do business, but a lot of people are just there, let me help you, let me find a way to add value or work with you in a different way or something.
Yeah.
And you find that when you walk away from those things, your energy has changed completely to that where you're just for the next few weeks, you're just running on pure energy from being around those people. And
Yeah.
I think that is super important. If you're hanging out with a Tony Robbins, right, or
Yeah.
different super rich people and super smart in business, you're going to talk and think and about different things, right? And
Yeah.
and that's what's super beneficial about being around them, is the mentality shift that you have, because that's really all wealth is that mentality shift and the actions items that you're going to do after that, right? So
Right. Yeah. And so speaking on that, obviously money is a big motivator, but I feel like for me personally, money isn't really obviously you want to make money and you want to make a lot of
it's
money,
not the
but
goal though.
that's
Yeah.
not my motive. Like I am not motivated by money. Hardly, I can't say hardly at all. Like I love an opportunity to make money, absolutely,
Yeah.
but if I don't enjoy what I'm doing, it's
What's the
really
point?
not worth
Right.
it's not worth it to me at all. And some people, I get it, like they're like, I just want to, like, they just want to make a ton of money, but some of those
Yeah,
people are like the most unhappy people that I've ever met.
for
And
sure.
so what is your like motivation in terms of continuing to grow? Doing, obviously you like what you're doing, but what's the motivation? Like what gets you going the most?
So really I know that if I'm not financially free, which means time freedom,
Yep.
and the systems, and I set up the systems the way they should be for my time freedom. You can make money as long as you have that time freedom and you have the system set up to create that time freedom. I know that if I can't do that for myself, then I'm never going to be able to teach my kids the same strategies on how to do that, right? And so to me, my mindset is more about, okay, create this time freedom, create these income streams, great. But at the same time, it comes down to that time freedom. It comes down to being able to do what I want. And I'm not talking about sitting on the couch, and relaxing. I have a hard time doing that because I want to be productive, right?
Yeah.
I should be reading a book, or I should be meditating, or I should be stretching, or the million other things you could do outside of work, right?
Right.
But also, how do I teach my kids the same strategies and give them the strength and the mindset to be able to do the same thing and be free? Because otherwise, like most people, if you look at, the percentage of people that is actually happy at their job, they're not
Mhm.
happy. Like 90% of the people out there are not happy at their jobs, right? Having to grind every day and it's just monotonous stuff. And I don't want that for my kids. I look at that as true slavery, right? I don't
Yeah.
think that they ever abolished slavery in this country. I think that they just changed it and made it debt, based,
Yeah.
and instead and enslaved everybody, and changed
100%.
it. And it's a crazy thing to say, but at the same time, like you look at that and I'm like, no, I don't want that for my kids. I want to be able to make them happy. And also that comes from being able to achieve themselves and find ways of doing this. How do I give them the tools to do that? And the only way I can give them those tools if I know it inherently myself to teach them those strategies, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what
It's
motivates me.
okay. I mean, that was a great answer. And I think it just attributes to, I mean, there's a huge unaddressed mental health problem in the world,
Huge.
in
Yeah.
America too. And it comes back to kind of what we talked about, maybe before we started recording, a little bit of just what people see online, and they see success and all the success, and then they don't have it. And it's like, I'm 16 and I don't drive a Ferrari, I'm a failure. And like all this stuff, like there was a time, like when I was young, when I was, 20 years old, yeah, I want it. And it, don't get me wrong, it's cool. Like I need to see, I want to have, like, I'm not successful, I don't have this, and I don't
Right.
have that. And honestly, I don't need any of that. And it's, I don't know if it's having kids, I don't know if it's meditating, but it's
Mhm.
just like, I just want to be able, I want to, like, my motivation and my purpose, and what we define, what I'm trying to get, what we define as wealthy is, people always tag that with how much money you have.
Right.
And I think
Not
it's
true at all.
wealthy.
Yeah.
No, how happy are you on a day-to-day basis?
Right.
And what are you doing? What makes you happy? And I feel like the most successful people now, and I feel like it's getting out there more,
Right.
but it's all these people that are seeing success. People don't realize they're doing what they're passionate about. And that is what makes them successful. And the money is a side effect
Right.
of that, because it's easy to get up in the morning and go and be productive if you love
Right.
what you're doing. You could do it 24 hours a day.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think there's a switch that happens. Maybe it's when you have kids or something like that that this
Yeah,
occurs, but I don't feel that most people can grow to the people, the potential that they could become if they don't have kids, because you become selfless when that occurs. And,
right.
if you're a good parent, you become selfless when that occurs.
Yeah, right.
But, at the end of the day, once you have that mental switch where you just don't care about stuff, like I could live in a freaking tent if it was warm and comfortable. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like I drove a 2008 Honda Accord for like the longest time, and my
right.
friends forced me to get a new car because they were like, "I'm sick of this," and I did an impulse buy at that time. But
Sure.
at the same time, like you realize your stuff drags you down, and it's when you get rid of your stuff, it's like a weight off of your shoulders when you can just like live simplistically. I keep telling my wife, we're just going to move to a tiny home somewhere and like just get rid of three
Honestly.
quarters of our crap that we don't need. So
Yeah.
and I still, she still wants to buy stuff sometimes, of course.
Yeah.
She's my wife, and I fight with her about the Amazon boxes. I'm like, no, no more. I'm gonna open all of them going forward. And she's like, you want to get a divorce, so you're gonna open all my Amazon boxes, go ahead. So
Yeah, exactly. Right.
that's where
Dude,
she draws the line. So
the people at the UPS store know me for returns. Okay. Like I make
oh
my,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Hey, I need you to return this for me. I'm
yeah.
like,
I'm
okay.
like, honey, you did not save money by returning the Amazon stuff, so you just cost yourself time. That's what you did,
Yeah.
so
It's so funny. No, don't get me wrong. Like if you want to, if you like having a nice car, have a nice car. If you like
yeah,
this, you like that, but don't make it your self-worth.
right, right,
It's just not it. I downgraded my truck because I loved it, but I was
yeah,
like, I'm such a slave to this thing, and it's just such a, like, like having to pay on this thing, and it's like, I don't. I'm just
You're
gonna,
like, I don't need the payment. Let me just get rid of the payment. Yeah, I
yeah,
don't need it.
exactly. Let me
Yeah.
get rid of it. Like this thing, it's got four wheels. It's say, I don't need a F-250 right now.
Yeah.
Maybe down the line I'll get it back, but it's like I'll drive a 150 and I'm totally fine with that.
Nice.
And it's just like it works. It's safe for the kids, and that's all I need, right? And it's amazing how the shift in that is. Like I have friends and stuff, and they're great people, but they don't. Some of them don't have kids yet. They're not married yet, and it's just like the mentality difference
Yeah.
is crazy. And I was the same way, but the shift and it's just like I don't really, I rarely even think about myself anymore. Obviously, I want to be healthy, take care of myself, but it's like
Right.
the
You don't need
priority shift.
anything,
Yeah,
right?
you
Yeah.
don't
You're
need
like,
anything. You're like,
right, right.
I just want to do what I need to do to spend the most time with my kids while they still want to spend time with me.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
goal.
Exactly.
you know?
Yeah, you realize how important that is. And when they're babies and you're, off doing your thing or mentally not there yet, and you realize, man, I wish I was living in the moment way better back then, and
Yeah.
can go back because you would do anything to go back to when they're babies and being like, let me relive that again.
Right.
So because
Yeah.
it's
Let me be
like,
miserable again. I don't
yeah,
let me
yeah,
not
let me
sleep
not
at night
sleep
again.
again for the first 6 months. Yeah.
Yeah. It was so not like, don't, it's just like, don't get bigger. Stop it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's crazy. It's really hard to appreciate if you don't. It sounds so cliche, but everybody, it's just like it's the greatest thing that there ever was.
Right.
To have
Absolutely.
kids, which is kind of funny that that's like what nature is, and that's the way it's supposed to be, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's so getting back to y'all's business and everything. What's next for you guys? What's what goals do you have going forward? Where do you want to get to? I know you said that. I mean, you guys are pretty established now. You're doing millions of dollars in deals all over the country. Are you entering that phase of, okay, now I've done it, I've been there, I've got my scars, and now I can educate people? Is that something that's next? I mean, what are your plans?
So I've been helping a lot of people basically create that financial freedom and the right structures and utilizing their capital to be able to do that and make money for myself as well as them at the same time, right? So we partner with a lot of people and do that and help them create those income streams, which I really love doing because it's really cool to teach them these strategies and
Sure.
help them with their whole financial plan and all that kind of stuff. To see that happening and saying, wow, you feel like you're trapped over here, but you have these resources. You can literally recreate this and be passive and be, free if you start to slowly reposition, but also learn the right way to do this, the right homework you have to do on these deals, and how to protect yourself any way you can, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I've been shifting a lot into being more passive on my side. Like we're not flipping anymore. As far as lending goes, we're not lending to the direct public anymore. We're actually just buying debt so that way we don't have to do that origination side of things and takes away a lot of workload. It takes away some of the profit too, but I also don't have to do any of that workload, right? And
Mm-hmm.
slowly repositioning the income streams to be a lot more passive in every way possible. And I've set up the right COOs on my team, the right CFOs, the people in place that actually are helping me run the business now and really buying my time back,
Yeah,
as much as possible. And that's what's super exciting when you do that. And I
that's
was
the
just
goal.
reading a book called Who Not How, and then another one called Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. And he talks a lot about, having someone in your inbox that answers all your emails. You know how hard emotionally that is to let go of your emails and be like, you
Oh
answer all
man.
my investors or all these people. That's not an easy thing to let go of, right? And it takes a lot of training and time to get that in place. But you realize sometimes you get 300 emails a day, you're a slave to your emails half the time. So,
Yeah.
being able to actually go through and piece by piece take those off your plate to create that freedom. And really, I want to get an RV and go travel with my kids and, be working on a mountain, doing podcasts like this on a mountain and stuff like
That's
that
awesome.
out there and teaching people. So that's where I get a lot of joy out of teaching other people these strategies because a lot of times people are just completely brainwashed into thinking, no, you got to put your money with Fidelity or Schwab and check the risk box and think that it's just going to go up when they take like 60% of your gains through fees and trade fees and
Yeah.
actually helping them take control of their money so then they can actually be in charge of their future moving forward, right? So
Right.
maybe some people shouldn't be in charge of their future. They don't have the knowledge base there, but for
That's
the
what you're
majority of
for.
people, yeah, you got to know where that line is, say, we'll do it for you, or, you should be doing this yourself, right? So
Yeah.
That's what's cool.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, there's a lot of power in one. I think there's a lot more power in having physical assets, which is what's so great about real
Yeah,
estate, right? I mean, it's just as opposed to being tied to this mystical stock market over here that's just,
right.
can just go away at any time, really.
Even within the real estate strategies, being able to say, hey, yeah, maybe I'm going to hold some hard assets, some
Mhm.
houses, some notes, some multifamilies myself in my own name where I have complete control. And then the other aspects, you're going to diversify and work with other operators that might specialize in short-term rentals or multifamilies or mobile homes or debt or different strategies, but diversify with them smaller amounts of money with different operators, different markets of the country, and realizing that they have control over those. So you should be diversified and then having your own control over here where you're like, all my expenses are covered by this. Now I'm going to slowly invest with other operators where they can do the work for me in those ways, right? Because you got to be real
Yeah.
careful who you do business with and understanding your own risk tolerance of your own portfolio to say, can I even deal with emotionally giving my money to somebody else to invest? Or do I got to be the one that's going to fix and flip it? And emotionally, do I have the time and the stress to deal with that too, right? Do I want to
Right.
manage managers and manage contractors and do all that stuff, So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's awesome, and it's yeah. I made a video about it right before we got on. Like, I'm in a little different space. I do luxury, residential luxury, and
cool.
it's I don't work with people I don't like. I'll say
Nice.
no if we don't mesh. I don't care. Like, I don't
Yeah,
need. I like all it's and because I have a lot of people that I work with that are just like stressed out and they've got all these problems with all these people, and it's just
right.
like one, I'm going to be who I am with these people. If they don't like me, they can walk away. That's fine. But if I don't like them either, if we're not going to mesh, and I know there's going to be a problem, there's always going to
Mhm.
be problems. But if we get along and on a person to person level, we have similar mentality and
Yeah,
we like each other, we can work those problems out and we can sit down and talk about it and be transparent with each other and
right.
not feel like somebody's going to get offended or
Mhm.
they feel like they own you and all this kind of stuff, and you avoid a lot of headaches that way. One, working with people that you like, that you can, if you like them, you're generally going to trust them more, and because they're intuitively you probably like them because they are trustworthy,
Right.
right?
And I think it's a big deal because a lot of times I say some of my biggest mistakes were because I ignored my warning signal up front where I saw the deal and I'm like, it's a great deal. And then something was off by the person that I was dealing with or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I pushed it aside because I was like, hey, that deal looks good. Let's focus on the deal. We'll make it work, like that. And I should have, every time I did that, there was a problem or something that happened later on. And you're like, that was stupid. Don't ignore your intuition on this stuff when you're working
Can't.
with people. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's huge.
Huge,
So,
huge. And just, don't be afraid to say no. Like, especially
yeah,
in sales or anything, like you got to say no a lot more than you really maybe are even comfortable doing. But most of the
right,
time, it's just like say no and say yes when it feels right. Like, you got to, and it goes back to meditation. You're a lot more in tune with
right,
that when your mind is under control and you're not really dealing emotionally, and it's just
right,
more of it's more you get more transactional about it, and it's just you can say no and not worry. Like, it's not gonna, people think like they don't want to, people get afraid that they're gonna, I don't know what it is, like it's hard to even relate to it anymore, but it's like they get afraid like that, so that person's not gonna like me, or they're gonna, or they're gonna talk bad about me, or
yeah.
it's gonna affect my business in a negative way if I don't get as much as I can, right? And
Saying no is a skill set, and you
yeah,
have to be emotionally strong to say no a lot of times. And some people will get themselves in corners, myself included, in the past, where I couldn't say no to somebody and should have never done it. Should have never done the deal because it only hurt me. And when you realize like you got to be selfish about your time, and who you're going to
right,
do business with and let in your life, that changes your perspective, and you're able to say no a lot faster because you're like, no, what's the what's going to happen if I don't say no? When you take a step back, you're like, oh, this could happen. Oh yeah,
right.
it's easier to say no then.
Exactly. If you have to worry, if there's anything you're worried about, it's generally probably wrong.
Right,
And and then and it makes those things like you talked about, buying your time back and handing that off. If you're working with people you like and trust, it's a lot easier to say, okay, I can let them do it. I trust them as opposed to I'm worried and now I'm now instead of doing it, now I'm micromanaging them and I end up doing it too. And I've just got
Right.
an extra thing I'm micromanaging. I recently finally got a transaction coordinator for things. And it was like the first couple times it was like, I'm so used to having like because honestly, my favorite part of my job is negotiating. I love it. I don't know. It's like,
Yeah.
it just gets you fired up. And I don't have to be nice anymore. Uh, and it's, it's just like, I can just go in here and just, nope, no, we're going to do it this way and that way, but anyway, it's like, then it was like, okay, we got the deal done. Now it's like a million emails, a million phone calls, setting everything up, getting everything done. And then I get this person's transaction coordinator. She's just absolutely the best. And it's like, I was like, the first couple of times it was like, okay, I'm going to hand you off. And it was just like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like, I I got to do something. No, I don't. I don't have to actually. It's already taken care of. It was like mind blowing the first time it happens. You're just like, oh my God, I have all this time now. I can actually, and it actually saying no and handing things off, you get more business anyway,
Right.
you know?
I think it's a hard thing for entrepreneurs when they've been grinding so long, pushing so long, and feeling like I got to be productive, to take that step back and allowing yourself to relax and say, I have freedom. I can do whatever I want right now, and I don't have to work. That's a hard thing to
Yeah.
take a step back from being like, no, I need to go and grind and I need to keep pushing, right? And it mentally doesn't click sometimes, you
Yeah.
know? So
It's like a mini identity crisis.
yeah,
You're
yeah.
like, this isn't, wait, it's not, what happened? I don't have to be up at 1 a.m. Filtering through my inbox right now.
Right, right.
What's happening right now? It's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. So, to kind of plug time here, if people want to work with you, whether it's learning, whether it's getting involved in doing a deal, whatever, if that's something even that you can help people with, how can they get in touch with you? Where can they find you? Where can they learn from you?
So just go to MathewOwens.com with one T in Matthew because I said my parents couldn't spell. So it's one T in Matthew. So yeah, MathewOwens.com. And I got, due diligence checklist that we have on there, a 200-point due diligence checklist, all the stuff that we go through when we're analyzing deals and asking
Awesome.
questions of operators and stuff. We have quick analysis sheets on how to analyze any property you want immediately. We have master classes on how to raise money, how to analyze deals, how to find them and stuff like that. So whatever you need, we just try to provide those resources. I used to sell classes and stuff, but now I just give that stuff away. It was just too much work to do the whole classes thing and everything.
Yeah,
So, but we just try to add as much value as we can to other people's lives. And,
love
you can
that.
always reach me at my website, MathewOwens.com. So
MathewOwens.com. That's Mathew
yes,
Owens.com.
correct.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, providing value is ultimately, I think, just it's the ultimate. That's the only
Right.
way to say it, right? It's just
Yeah, for sure.
the more value you can provide, the more it comes back to you. Uh,
I find when you are out there helping people, the people you don't have to sell anything at all. When people want to work with you, they come to you because you're adding enough value for them to want to work with you. So you don't ever have to sell anything. They're going to all come to you. And so that's what's really cool about that whole value add strategy. Karma comes back to you. I don't care if it's
100%.
6 years later, someone's, comes back to you and is like, "Hey, you helped me, a long time ago. I didn't even realize it. And here's like another guy that needs help or another person that needs help." You're just like, wow, that's great, So
It's awesome. It's fulfilling too to see when people do learn from you and you like the people you teach or help and then they see success, when you coach them and
yeah,
then they
that's
start getting success,
super
it's just
cool.
like, yeah, it's
Yeah, you're like, that's
unbelievable.
dope. Yeah, and you don't even realize it. I have a guy that I was doing mentorship years ago and helping him and stuff like that on tax side, legal structure side, on property due diligence side, and now he's raised like $50 million for projects and things like that, and it's just super exciting to see that happen and going, wow, like you just took it to a whole nother level. That's
That's
super
awesome.
awesome to see that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
unbelievable. So guys, MathewOwens.com, he's your guy. Buy your time back, become financially free, lose the stress, get with the best. Matthew Owens, really appreciate you coming on, man. It's been an amazing conversation, and I hope that you guys just keep growing and burning because it seems like you're doing good, honest business, and that's really hard to find in this world.
appreciate that, man, very much. Thanks for having me. Hopefully we add some value to everybody on the call today, so on the video.
Absolutely. So, yeah, we'll have to have you on again in the future and see where things are, see how things are growing, and see how much time. Obviously you'll have the time by then.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. I'll
So
be on a
anyway,
mountain in
guys,
an RV, so
yeah. Oh, there you go. Absolutely. Yeah, I want to see the view next time. Not that you
nice.
got a great setup going on there, but yeah, I want to see the view from the mountaintop next time. So guys, yeah, thank you for listening again. Thank you for joining us. Extra Reverb Shop is live. Anything you buy in the store does go to benefit veterans. So appreciate your contributions to anything you buy in the shop. We got some awesome. I just love designing shirts and hats and all that kind of stuff. It's not even all just our logos and stuff. So there's a lot of cool stuff to check out if you want to check that out. And also stay tuned for new episodes. Thanks for joining us. Peace out.